In the late 16th century, England, a rising power, set its sights on the New World. The goal? To plant a permanent English flag on American soil, a place for families to build new lives. But what transpired on a small island off the coast of what we now call North Carolina became one of the most enduring and haunting mysteries in American history. An entire community, over 100 men, women, and children, vanished without a trace. There were no bodies, no ruins, no signs of a desperate battle. All that was left behind was a single, cryptic word carved into a wooden post: CROATOAN. This is the story of the lost colony of Roanoke. Our story begins in the summer of 1587. A fleet of English ships carrying more than 115 colonists lands on Roanoke Island. This wasn't a group of soldiers looking for a quick conquest or a temporary military outpost. This was a community. It included families, skilled laborists, and even the first English child born in the Americas, Virginia Dare. They were there to build a permanent home, a new England across the Atlantic. Their governor was an artist and cartographer named John White, who was also Virginia Dare's grandfather. The colonists set about building their settlement, clearing land, and trying to forge a life in this unfamiliar territory. But as the months wore on, it became clear they were dangerously unprepared. Food was scarce, supplies were dwindling, and their relationship with the local Native American tribes was tense and uncertain. Realizing the gravity of their situation, Governor John White made a difficult decision. He would sail back to England to gather reinforcements and essential supplies. He promised a swift return, expecting to be back within a year. He left behind his daughter, his granddaughter, and the entire community, entrusting them to fate. He had no idea it would be the last time he would ever see them. John White arrived back in an England on the brink of war. King Philip II of Spain was preparing to launch his mighty Spanish Armada, a massive fleet intended to invade England and overthrow Queen Elizabeth I. Every available ship, every able-bodied sailor, was conscripted for the national defense. England was in a state of emergency, and a small, distant colony was the last thing on anyone's mind. White's pleas for a relief mission were ignored. His ships were seized for the war effort. He was trapped, helpless, as months turned into a year, and then two. The war with Spain dragged on, and even after the English victory over the Armada, organizing a transatlantic voyage was a monumental task. For 3 long, agonizing years, John White was stuck in England, tormented by the thought of his family and the colonists he had left behind, wondering if they were surviving, starving, or worse. He tried multiple times to secure passage back, but was thwarted by pirates, politics, and bad luck. Finally, in August of 1590, 3 years after he had departed, he managed to charter a privateering expedition that agreed to stop at Roanoke. As his ship approached the island, his heart must have been pounding with a mix of hope and dread. As White and his men stepped ashore on that late summer day, an eerie silence greeted them. The bustling settlement he had left behind was gone. The houses, the workshops, the church, they had all vanished. But this wasn't a scene of destruction. It wasn't a burnt-out ruin or a battlefield littered with the dead. Instead, the buildings appeared to have been carefully and systematically dismantled. The heavy defensive palisade that once encircled the settlement was still standing, but the homes within were gone. There were no human remains, no skeletons, no signs of a struggle or a violent raid. It was as if the entire colony had been neatly packed up and moved. White and his men searched the empty site, their calls echoing unanswered through the trees. They found some of White's own belongings, including his books and maps, half buried and ruined by weather, suggesting the colonists had left in a planned, yet perhaps hurried, manner. Then, they found the only real clues. Carved into a post of the fort's entrance was the word CROATOAN. On another tree, they found the letters CRO. CROATOAN was the name of a nearby island, now known as Hatteras Island, which was the home of a friendly Native American tribe. Before leaving 3 years earlier, White had instructed the colonists that if they had to move, they should carve their destination into a tree. He also told them to carve a Maltese cross if they were in distress. There was no cross. This suggested their departure was voluntary. But before White could sail to CROATOAN to investigate, a powerful hurricane swept in, battering his ships and making a journey south impossible. With his supplies low and his crew unwilling to risk another storm, a heartbroken John White was forced to sail back to England. He would never get another chance to search for his family or his lost colony. For over 400 years, the fate of the Roanoke colonists has captivated historians, archaeologists, and amateur sleuths alike. What does CROATOAN really mean? The most straightforward theory is that the colonists, facing starvation, simply moved south to CROATOAN Island to live with the friendly CROATOAN tribe. They assimilated, intermarried, and their English identity gradually faded over generations. There are some tantalizing hints to support this. Later explorers and settlers in North Carolina reported encountering Native Americans with gray eyes and light-colored hair, who claimed their ancestors were white people. Some even used English-sounding words, but the evidence is purely anecdotal. Another theory suggests a more tragic end. Perhaps they were not welcomed by all native tribes. The Spanish, who had a presence to the south in Florida, were rivals of the English and may have discovered and destroyed the colony. However, Spanish records from the time show no mention of such an event. Could they have tried to sail back to England on their own and been lost at sea? Or did they move inland, deeper into the vast, unknown continent? Recent archaeological work has unearthed English pottery and other European artifacts from the 16th century at Native American sites dozens of miles inland from Roanoke, suggesting some colonists might have split into smaller groups and integrated with different tribes. Yet, despite these clues, no definitive proof has ever been found. No mass grave, no shipwreck, no undisputed English settlement site. The fate of over 100 people remains completely unknown, lost to the fog of time. The lost colony of Roanoke is so much more than just a historical cold case. It is a powerful reminder of the immense dangers and uncertainties faced by the first Europeans who dared to cross the Atlantic. It underscores the fragility of life and how quickly a community, a piece of history, can be erased from the map, leaving only whispers and questions behind. It was America's first mystery, and it remains its most profound. For over 4 centuries, the story has endured, a blank page in the opening chapter of American history. What really happened to the men, women, and children of Roanoke? Did they find a new home among the people who already lived there, or did they meet a grim end in the unforgiving wilderness? The truth is, we may never know, and perhaps that's part of the story's power. Some mysteries are not meant to be solved, but to remind us of what can be lost. Thanks for watching. If you're fascinated by unsolved mysteries from history, be sure to subscribe for more stories like this. See you next time.